40 years. Say that slowly. 40 years in the desert. Not as a tourist, not as an observer, as the man responsible for every person who was thirsty, every person who was hungry, every person who doubted, every person who rebelled, every person who wanted to go back to Egypt. And now, after all of it, the land is visible, not a promise anymore, a geography. Hills, rivers, cities, right there, across the Jordan. And God says, "You will not bring this community into the land I give them. Not yet. Not after one more act of service. Never. 40 years. Denied." And the question every reader asks immediately, for striking a rock? Go back to the scene. Israel has no water, and the people do what they have always done. They complain. God speaks to Moses. "Take the staff. Speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water." Speak to it. One word. One instruction. Moses takes the staff. He gathers the people, and then, before the water, before the miracle, he says something. "Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock?" Must we? And he raises the staff and strikes the rock. Once. Nothing happens immediately. He strikes again. The water flows. 3 things happened in that moment. Moses spoke, but to the people in anger, not to the rock in faith. Moses said "we," as if this miracle depended on him. And Moses struck twice, not once in impulse, but twice in persistence. But before we understand what God said in response, we need to understand what Moses had been carrying, because this moment did not begin at the rock. 3 days after crossing the Red Sea, the people complain about water. Weeks later, about food. Then the golden calf while Moses was receiving the law from God. Then the spies, 10 of 12 returning with fear. The people weeping through the night, talking about going back to Egypt. Then Korah's rebellion, 250 leaders rising against Moses, the earth swallowing them, and the very next day the people blaming Moses for their deaths. Complaint after complaint, rebellion after rebellion, year after year. And then, in Numbers 11, in the middle of an ordinary moment, Moses says something to God that reveals everything. "Why have you brought this trouble on your servant? I cannot carry all these people alone. The burden is too heavy for me. If this is how you are going to treat me, please go ahead and kill me." Moses asked God to kill him, not in a moment of extreme crisis, in an ordinary moment of ordinary complaints. This was not a man reaching his limit for the first time. This was a man who had been emptied slowly, until even the ordinary had become unbearable. And it is this man, this exhausted 40 years worn man, who stands in front of the rock. After 40 years of carrying Israel, surely God would understand. Instead, he says something no one expected. Not, "You used the wrong technique." Not, "You struck when I said speak." "Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them. You did not honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites." That phrase, "in the sight of the Israelites," is the center of everything. This was not a private failure between Moses and God. This was a public moment, in front of the entire people, when the man who represented God to them chose, in his exhaustion, to represent something else. Moses was not simply a leader. He was the visible mediator between God and Israel. What he did in front of the people defined how they understood God. And in front of the rock, the people did not see God's provision. They saw Moses' anger. The water came, but the lesson was lost. Because the man who was supposed to disappear in that moment, so that only God remained visible, had placed himself at the center instead. Deuteronomy 3. Moses tells his own version of what happened after. At that time I pleaded with the Lord, pleaded, "Let me go over and see the good land beyond the Jordan. Just see it, just the crossing." And God answered, "That is enough. Do not speak to me any more about this matter. That is enough." Two words that carry the full weight of a closed door. No explanation, no consolation, just enough. And Moses, who had argued with God on behalf of others countless times, does not argue now. He stops. He transfers the leadership to Joshua. He blesses the tribes one by one, and he climbs the mountain. God says to him, "Go up to the top of Pisgah. Look west and north and south and east. Look at the land with your own eyes." Moses climbs. He is 120 years old. The text says his eyes were not weak. His strength had not faded. He could see everything clearly. And from the top of Pisgah, from the summit of Nebo, he sees it. The Jordan Valley below, Jericho in the distance, the hill country, the western sea, the northern ranges, everything, from Dan to the Negev, the entire land, visible, all of it, at once. And God speaks. "This is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you will not cross over into it." Moses does not speak. No prayer, no protest, no last negotiation, just silence. And then Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in Moab, as the Lord had said. And God buried him, not his family, not Joshua, not the elders of Israel. God buried him in a place no one has ever found, in a valley in the land of Moab, facing the land he could not enter, known only to the one who put him there. 40 years denied. After everything, the golden calf, the spies, the rebellions, the moment he asked God to kill him rather than carry them one more day, Moses was denied entry for what happened at the rock. Was it fair? The text does not answer that question directly. But there is one more detail that most people never reach. Centuries later, on a mountain in Galilee, something happens that the gospel writers record without fully explaining. Jesus is transfigured before his disciples. His face shines like the sun, and two figures appear beside him, Elijah and Moses. Moses, who never crossed the Jordan, who died on the mountain facing the land, who was buried by God in a valley no one can find, is standing inside the promise, not looking at it from a distance, inside it. The man who was denied entry eventually entered, not through the Jordan, not through Jericho, not in the way anyone expected, but the text shows him there, present, in the land, talking with the one who had buried him. 40 years denied. Yes, but denied is not the same as never. And the God who said, "That is enough. Do not speak to me any more about this matter," was also the one who showed up on that mountain and brought Moses home.